Good morning, everyone. It's time to get our 53rd meeting of the Cass Clay Food Commission started today. I'd like to start off. We have a new commission member who will be joining us from here on out, Amber Bora from the city of Dilworth. And so, although not with us today, oh, she's online. Perfect. Welcome, Amber.
Hi, sorry I couldn't be there. I got a sick child this morning, so glad to have the option to get online here.
That's all right. That is one of the beautiful things about having hybrid meetings. It allows for flexibility in life.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're going to start at the next agenda item to approve the order and the contents of our overall agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Marvelous, thank you. Can we have a second?
Second.
Excellent, thank you. Any further discussion? No, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Let us start by reviewing the minutes as well. And so they were sent out to us in our meeting packet. Somebody who's had a chance to review the minutes would make a motion to approve the minutes from January 8th. That would be wonderful.
This is Amy Zundel. I can make that motion.
Marvelous. Thank you. We have a second.
So moved. Engler.
Marvelous. Thank you, Karen. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. We're going to start with commission introductions. It's a pleasure to have all of us here in person as well as online. I want to start by appreciating, before we do introductions, the hosting of this meeting. MetroCog has welcomed us to their space because City Hall in Fargo was busy today. And so I just want to start by appreciating Adam and the MetroCog crew for hosting us today. So I will start with introductions. My name is Heather Niesemeyer. I am a representative from the city of Moorhead. And we'll go to my left.
I am Anna Johnson. I am an at-large member.
Hi, Karen Engler, at large. John Kaplan.
Let's see, let's go to Commissioner. Oh, one more.
Jeff York at large.
Marvelous. Thank you, Jeff.
I'm Amy Zundel. I'm from the city of West Fargo.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy.
Jim Flacco, Cass County.
Excellent. And Amber already introduced themselves. We've got one more commissioner.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Jeff. No. Paul Hankel from City of Horace, and I'm a proxy.
So thank you. We'll also continue with our steering committee members that we have with us today. Who would like to start? Rory, do you want to start?
Rory Beal, Clay County Public Health.
Marvelous. Thank you.
Noelle Harden, Minnesota Extension.
Janice Tweet, Great Plains Food Bank.
Cheryl Stets, Fargo Cass, Book Health, and I'm sorry I got a phone call right when this was starting and kind of threw me, but sorry about that.
Deb Haugen, part of the steering committee.
Erica Frank, Clay County Planning and Zoning.
Adam Altenberg, MetroCog.
Marvelous. And I think it's Eric.
Yep, Eric Egg, Global Refuge, joining online today. Thank you.
Marvelous. Thanks for being here, Eric. All right, so we will move on to steering committee updates. On our agenda, it's item 3. And with that, Cheryl will start with some beautiful slides and share updates from the last meeting.
Sorry. All right, today's been one of those mornings all of a sudden. So some of our strategic plan updates, we've been working on our priority 1, which is our governance working group. We've been able to create some good guiding documents for each arm of the food partner or the food partners, excuse me. We're also exploring some funding opportunities. We're looking into a grant with West Central Initiative and civil engagement. We're also looking into a grant with North Dakota Preventative Health and Health Services Block Grant, tongue-tied. Our priority 2 is communication education, and Noel will speak further on that with our newsletter, our Action Network. And we also have our strategic priority 3, is revising blueprints with backyard chickens, keeping that updated, and also our 10-year recognition. Our next one, our historical pillars. Today's meeting will feature the follow-up from our January meeting on our backyard chickens and urban agriculture. We also move into today's theme will be outreach and education, highlighting the pillars of the work from the last 10 years.
Marvelous. Thank you very much for those updates. I was appreciative in January, and I'm going to continue my appreciation for this group. Not just making a strategic plan, but putting it into action and looking forward to make plans so we can make the most impact throughout this year based on our strategic plan. I think that is outstanding. Thanks for those updates, Cheryl. Next, we have an update from our Action Network. Felicity.
Felicity could not be here today, but I can give the Action Network update.
Thank you, Noel.
So we have been continuing to work on our monthly newsletter. Last month's newsletter was kind of a just general support and encouraging people to get involved in the local food system, especially as there's a lot of uncertainty and concern around egg prices, inflation, what's happening with federal programs. So just, you know, I know I've been getting more questions around backyard chickens, and I think people sometimes turn to local food as a place where they can have some control in their lives and in how they're feeding their family. So we tried to kind of lift that up as a way to encourage people to find a way to be positively involved in the community. The Action Network has also been, I wanted to acknowledge Felicity as the person who's been putting our Action newsletter together and is doing a really great job with that. So thank you to Felicity, even though she can't be here today. We've also been working on an events calendar about different food-related events that are happening throughout the year. It's an internal calendar that we will use to figure out where we might have a presence and do some tabling as the food partners. We are confirmed in April to be a part of Concordia's Earth Week. So April 23rd, they're having some vendors and organizations that will be attending that. So we'll have a presence there. And then if you have any food system related events that you think should be on our radar, even if you're not totally sure, you can send those my way or to any of the steering committee members, to Adam, and we can make sure that those get added to our events calendar. And then if you're interested in having access to that too, you can let me know. It's just a simple Google Doc at this point. That's really all I have. Are there any questions or anything about that? Or additions? Rory is also a member of the Action Network, and Janice and Cheryl often attend our meetings as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that update. I know the redevelopment and the redesign and re-energizing of the Action Network has been a focus. And so I appreciate all of the work that is being done. Also, the offering of time to table and get the word out about the Action Network, I think is really important, specifically for people who may not know we exist and have existed for so long. Next on our agenda, we've got a backyard chickens update. And so Adam is going to touch briefly on our amended blueprint, as well as a presentation from Dr. Addie Schuft about avian influenza or H5 influenza.
Thank you, Chair. This item again is a continuation of the discussion that we had at the commission meeting back in January. Just a brief recap. This all started basically last August when the Fargo City Commission received a public comment asking whether the city would raise the number of permitted chickens in the city of Fargo from 4 to 6. This request to change ordinance has been received by the city auditor's office. We talked about it at the food commission back in January. The motion that came out of that discussion was for the steering committee to review and revise the Backyard Chickens blueprint, which was initially developed in 2015 and then last amended in 2020. But also at that meeting, there were a few questions about avian flu. So what the steering committee decided to do is we thought we would maybe delve into that topic a little bit more. Noah Harden, she reached out to Abby. Is it Schuft? Is that?
I believe so.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
She's with the University of Minnesota Extension. And she's put together about a 20-minute video just talking about avian flu attacks. And then she's addressed some of the questions that we had that we were able to ask her last week. So with that, I'll just note that we have started to amend the Backyard Chickens blueprint. A couple of the items that we have included is a new summary chart where chicken keeping has been approved in local jurisdictions. Since this was last amended, City of West Fargo and City of Moorhead had both adopted ordinances allowing backyard chicken keeping in their jurisdictions. We also get information that's specific to Fargo about issues and considerations should Fargo move to allow up to 6 chickens. These were touched on at the meeting back in January. We also have information about H5 influenza. There's a little bit of information about avian flu in the previous, or I suppose the current version. We've just added some additional information about that and hear a little bit more from Dr. Schuft here in a moment. And then we've also revised some of the appendices, including example ordinances, and then also additional resources that have been developed over the years. We will note that there are other jurisdictions that are looking or potentially looking to develop backyard chicken ordinances. We might hear a little bit more about that here later in the meeting. So if that does occur, we'll be sure to make sure that this blueprint is then up to date should additional jurisdictions move to allow backyard chickens. But with that, I'm going to go into our video here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to address you via Zoom recording this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to still be able to address your questions while not being able to do it in real time. So Noelle shared a list of questions that you all have regarding avian influenza. I hope to address them very briefly, but give you enough understanding and awareness of the virus so that you can be a little more informed and be able to move forward accordingly for your respective communities. So avian influenza is not new. It might be new to you because we've been hearing so much more about it in Minnesota and even in North Dakota. But again, it's not new. It's been in the United States since 1878. It wasn't necessarily a large concern until 2014, 2015, because we had very sporadic incidents across the country for many, many, many years, a period of over 40 years. We only had 15 reported cases in the United States of highly pathogenic avian influenza. Let me also say that there's a low pathogenic avian influenza. The difference is being low pathogenic avian influenza is more of a very mild respiratory illness that affects domestic poultry, chickens, turkeys, geese, ducks. And that's something that they can recover from. So it will be more comparable to one of our colds or a more mild influenza or illness that humans could get and we're going to recover for. And birds can do the same way with low pathogenic avian influenza. And it's actually a very common illness among our poultry flocks. Highly pathogenic avian influenza is the same types of influenza viruses. It's the same nomenclature. However, for whatever reason, highly pathogenic avian influenza is a much harsher and aggressive and assertive mutation of the virus itself. Highly pathogenic means it spreads quickly and it will have devastating effects, meaning it will terminate the animal's life, likely much earlier than we anticipate that animal to die. So highly pathogenic avian influenza is the influenza virus of concern. And like I said, there was many, many years that we only had about 15 documented cases. So it wasn't as prolific as it is now. Starting in 2014, we started to see, in late 2014, we were seeing cases in the Pacific Northwest. It eventually, with the migration season in the spring, progressed eastward across the United States. And in Minnesota, we saw our first case in March of 2015. And then by the middle of June, the entire virus was gone and eliminated from the United States. Then comes 2022, we start to see the same strain of the virus, which comes from, it's a Eurasian form of the virus. And so somehow it was originated in Asia, in Guangdong, China. And it has then now come across the ocean via migratory birds. And it was found again on the East Coast this time in early 2022. Likely it might have been here at the end of 2021. So then this H5N1 highly pathogenic avian influenza returned to the United States through wild waterfowl and their migratory patterns and pathways. And then it spread into our domestic poultry. Actually, the first domestic case in 2022 was some ducks in Indiana. And then it has continued to persist since February of 2022 in the United States. We have not yet had what we would want to say as an all clear. Then in 2024, this virus has continued to mutate and modify, and now the risk for avian influenza is diversifying. It's infecting many, many, many other animal species, which I'll introduce here very shortly, and as well as more human infections of this H5 influenza virus. Overall, since 2022, it has infected birds, domestic birds in all 50 states and Puerto Rico, affecting 166 million, with an M, birds in the United States. Affecting means they are infected, and by regulatory guidance from the USDA, those birds need to be terminated in order to stop the spread to any other local birds. There are 770 flocks of commercial production animals, and it's not just a commercial influenza virus, it's also affecting backyard flocks, our small flocks. Backyard flocks are as small as 4 or 5 birds, up to 200 birds, which USDA considers non-commercial. So there's 858 backyard or small flocks that have also been infected. So it's not only just a commercial virus, any domestic bird is susceptible to the virus. What that looks like for our local community in Minnesota, we've had 185 premises that have been infected with 9 million birds since 2022. 141 commercial flocks and 44 backyard flocks. In North Dakota, we've had considerably less flocks affected, with only 38 and only 440,000 birds total. However, you have more backyard flocks that have been affected over the commercial flocks. And merely that's simply because your commercial poultry production in North Dakota is vastly different than what our picture of poultry production in Minnesota looks like. I mentioned that wild birds carry this. Initially, the story started out that wild birds were asymptomatic carriers. Remember that term from COVID? We might be an asymptomatic carrier. We are not ill or feeling the ill effects of the virus, but we can still carry it. Wild birds were the same way, primarily ducks and geese. Ducks could be carriers, didn't know that they were sick, didn't act sick, but then they could defecate in ponds. They would visit shared spaces with domestic poultry, such as somebody's backyard that has some bird seed or extra chicken feed laying on the ground, and these birds as they're migrating will land and temporarily stay in a location because there's feed available or there's a water source available. And so then the domestic birds and the wild birds somehow are sharing some of that space. Commercially, it's a little different. We might have flocks of geese and ducks that are landing in fields very nearby a commercial operation. We know that people can spread it. Actually, they are the transmitters. They might be walking through feces. They might be walking through dander and down that has been shed from a wild bird. So we do know also that wild birds have been detected to have HPAI in all 50 states again, and there's only 12,000 documented cases. It's a challenge for regulatory agencies determining who's actually going to test these dead animals. So DNR, USDA Wildlife Services, should USDA be testing them? So all in all, we do have over 12,000 documented cases. And it ranges from all types of birds like gulls and grackles and finches to raptors like owls and eagles and hawks, widgeons, mallards, ruddy ducks, teal, pintail, all the ducks, and geese. Several geese, Canadian geese and snow geese most commonly. We are also finding highly pathogenic avian influenza in mammals, most commonly because they are consuming infected birds. And so there's 521 documented cases in the United States. This is likely a dramatic underrepresentation. However, Minnesota and North Dakota both have some documented cases. North Dakota, yours happens to be 4 red fox. And in Minnesota, we have red fox domestic cats. Think about your farm cats or country feral cats in the farming neighborhood. Some black bears. And there's just, you can see on the map, there's lots of different types of mammals that have been infected with HPAI. So what's important for you to know is that influenza is a shared virus. Whether we're talking about this H5 virus or any other influenza virus that might be affecting human health scenarios each flu season. There's approximately 2,000 avian species in North America and 1,000 mammalian species. And there's going to be no complete picture of how influenza or what influenza hosts are truly available. And there's never going to be, because influenza is constantly changing and evolving so that it itself can maintain itself and survive. So you can see just how interconnected some of these influenza viruses are and the species that it's going to primarily affect. And just because avian influenza originates in avian species, it doesn't mean that it can't infect others. Similarly, swine influenza, which are H5 and H2 and H3 viruses, they can also infect other animals and mammals. So what happens when flu viruses change? They become more virulent, they become stronger. New generations of the virus, and this is going to be a weird comparison, but just stay with me. When we have kids, we want our kids to be more successful. We want them to have a stronger start. They're learning the alphabet at age 2 and age 3 when we maybe learned the alphabet at age 4, 5, or 6 in kindergarten. So at each generation, they're becoming stronger, they're becoming smarter, if you will. That's what's also happening with influenza viruses. It's also going to take a smaller amount to infect whatever host it has now selected. And it can spread to new species. That being said, in 2024, it spread to dairy cattle. Until 2024, dairy cattle had never had an influenza A virus. So somehow the virus knew this, found the mammary system of dairy cows to be a naive host and a really great place to infect. So there are 17 states with dairy herds that have H5 influenza virus and 983 cases across the US. 9 have been identified in Minnesota. We believe this is a also very dramatic underestimation. And North Dakota has seen no cases in dairy herds. So what can we all do? With the exception of putting a big glass house around our property that we want to keep back our chickens in, or putting a really big like sonic bubble around our commercial poultry farms, our number one go-to is something we can control, and that's biosecurity. And the basic definition of biosecurity are the things that we can do to prevent a disease introduction or to reduce its spread. And the number one way to do this is to wash your hands. Washing hands, wearing clean clothing, boots that you are going to wear out to a chicken coop to do your chicken chores for the day. Many of these things are biosecurity. It's a matter of sometimes of reframing the context of hygiene is also biosecurity. So this is a graphic that University of Minnesota, alongside with the Minnesota Board of Animal Health, created in early 2022 for those small flock owners about what can they do to help protect themselves. And one is to avoid attracting wild birds to your premises. It might be making sure that your birds are enclosed. It might be that you don't have standing water, that your birds don't have access to a pond or lake or a stream where wild waterfowl might visit, to limit or halt any travel to poultry shows, swaps, your friend's house, coop tours. I know those things are popular in the Twin Cities area, but if you're going to do those things, to do it smartly. Wear clean clothing and especially footwear when you are visiting other birds than your own, and then make sure that you can completely change your clothes and your footwear. Hopefully also shower before you go visit your own birds and take care of them. With respect to community poultry ordinances, I've spent a lot of time over the last 8 years helping communities with ordinances. And I just want to be honest here that limiting the number of birds in an ordinance doesn't necessarily impact the risk of those birds contracting avian influenza. As I mentioned earlier, there's flock sizes as small as 4 that have been infected and as large as 2 and 3 million in our commercial egg layers. So it's not necessarily the number of birds, it's how those birds are managed. Also, with respect to requiring testing of a dead bird, that is could be seen negatively by some of your constituents and residents, but it's also that testing costs money to send to a veterinary diagnostic lab that is approved by the National Animal Health Laboratory Network, the NALM labs. So you have one in Fargo at NDSU, and there's actually 2 in Minnesota. One is in Willmar, Minnesota, and then one is in St. Paul at the University of Minnesota. If these small flock owners have a relationship with a veterinarian, that's one way they can go, and the veterinarian can do a necropsy. Many of our small flock owners are very well versed. They have a lot of experience and they can do their own necropsy. So they would understand if something looks off. But if they do have this relationship with a small flock owner, avian influenza is a reportable disease, whether it is highly pathogenic or low pathogenic avian influenza. And then at that point, the Minnesota Board of Animal Health or the North Dakota Department of Agriculture would step in to help control that disease. This is a very brief overview. I've already taken up a little bit more time than Noelle was hoping for, but here are some additional resources that you can go to yourself or hopefully share with your residents and constituents. First off is the extension website for the University of Minnesota Poultry Program. Additionally, we have a very robust YouTube channel with over 60 educational videos Some are about basic poultry care. There's a lot of information about biosecurity and avian influenza. We talk about predators, cold weather management. There's a lot of resources there. And as well as the University of Minnesota Extension Poultry Facebook page. Lots of resources there, information of webinars that are coming up, whether they're from the state or our national extension program. All of that information can be found on the Extension Poultry website or Facebook page. And additionally, Extension, we are not the state regulators. We need to include the Minnesota Board of Animal Health. Their website is located here, and they have a great dashboard for understanding where HPAI might be in the state of Minnesota and what sort of resources are available as well. So they are a great resource. And just because they are our regulator doesn't mean they don't have information that can help. We have long partnered with them. Extension has long partnered with the Minnesota Board of Animal Health, and they are a great resource. I'd like to leave you with my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Full transparency, I have spent the last 8 years in Extension working in the poultry program. However, in January, I did take a leadership role, and until my former position is filled, I started doing double duty. So I will connect back with you, but please give me some of your patience and some grace to readdress some of your questions that you may have, but I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Thank you.
All right, a lot of good information there. Again, thank you, Noelle, for reaching out to.
Yeah, and if people, I did bring some note cards. If you have follow-up questions that you would like Dr. Schuft to address, if you want to write them down on a note card, I can get those to her. So, or people online can put them in the chat or email me as well. So does anyone have a question that they want her to address just right off the bat? I thought she did a nice job of kind of laying out the issue, explaining how it works. So great. Well, just let me know if you do have any additional questions on that.
Marvelous. Thank you, Noelle and Adam. That was a wonderful video. I also appreciate the handouts. Dr. Schuft had listed the one which we have printed copies with us today about the influenza and protecting your small flock. There's also an additional handout from the University of Minnesota Extension about common concerns with keeping urban poultry. And so based on Adam's brief review and our presenter speaker today, it didn't seem that there was a great deal of additional risk or adversity in increasing the flock from 4 to 6. Is that what I understood? Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, not only about the video, but about the update to the blueprint for backyard chicken keeping?
Well, I just had a question. I think this was extremely informative. I don't have backyard chickens, but I know people who do. And I was jotting some things down as a website and so on. How can we get this information to many of the people that are raising chickens? I think that would be really helpful and something that we could do.
That's an excellent question and comment, maybe call to action as well, Joan. I think people would be able to check out the viewing of this meeting. I don't know if we have agreement, appreciation, allowance from Dr. Abby to post her video publicly. She did specifically reference how it was for our meeting in the video. And so perhaps we could share the recording of our video that's posted on the City of Fargo's space for the Cass Clay Food Commission. And you could include a timestamp for when the discussion topic comes up, as well as that video is played. I welcome any other comments or ideas about how we can get this information to friends, neighbors, colleagues who already have chickens, but also individuals who may be considering chickens.
It could go in the newsletter and then pushing it out from there and saying, please share this, because a lot of people are on the email list that get the newsletter. So pushing it that way, so.
That's a great idea. I can follow up with Dr. Abby, I like that, to see if we could just share like the 20-minute portion as well. And we might need to get that into a different format, but we can figure that out. But I love the idea of sharing out the recording of this meeting with the timestamp. I'm also a big fan of this like graphic of how to manage risk. So I think we could include this image in our newsletter, as well as, you know, I wonder about, we obviously have our own website for the food partners. It would be great to have some of this information linked where the policies are listed.
that's what I
Like,
was
I know
thinking,
the
the
city of
blueprints,
Moorhead
yeah.
has, some of our extension resources listed right where they have like the ordinance information. So I think that's something that would be really helpful, because you know you're reaching the people who are taking a look at doing it if they're reading the ordinance language and applying. So
And
Yeah,
this is probably jumping ahead to later in the meeting, but just related to this is a good example. I think in this case, it happens to be the backyard chickens and the avian flu and so on, the H5. But as we encounter other major issues and information that we want to push, I mean, as our group, do we have good ways to do that? I mean, so we might want to start documenting or thinking about plugging future issues into a system that we have in place. Is that, you know what I mean? So then we can say, oh, well, then it goes to here, rather than this brainstorming is important, but we might want to track what we are doing. So when future major issues that we want to push information, we've got a system in place, which is kind of, again, maybe something towards the end of the meeting, but that's a thought.
I want to pause for comments or questions from anybody online and encourage your participation in the backyard chicken update. Hearing none, I think we will move on to agenda item 6, which is the Cass Clay Food Commission 10-year celebration. Noelle is going to lead us, but what we are terribly excited about is the 10-year celebration and the anniversary of the Cass Clay Food Commission. And so the steering committee has brought forth some slides and discussion to look back at work that has been accomplished by this outstanding group, but also get some feedback. And so thank you in advance, Adam, for sending us those questions. Noelle, would you like to take away the presentation for the 10-year celebration?
As I'm staring at this pile of note cards, I think I'll just pass these out. And if you want to jot anything down related to the discussion questions, which I'll share here in a moment, you have something that you can write on and even hand in at the end. Your friends from Metro Cloud and everything today. So first of all, happy anniversary, everyone. It's so exciting. This is exactly 10 years, basically to this day, that we had our very first food commission meeting. And so it both feels like it's been the blink of an eye in some ways and an incredibly long journey in other ways. So I'm excited. This presentation is not going to be a comprehensive timeline of everything that we've talked about or everything that we've done, or even a lot about like our structure and priorities. We've recently gone through strategic planning. So we've had a lot of conversations kind of in the weeds and looking out about how we want to serve the community. This is just more about some kind of fun and celebratory highlights on the work that we've done together over the last 10 years. So I invite you to consider these discussion questions as I'm sharing these highlights. Think about what stood out to you, questions that you have. If you have questions that you want to jump in and ask, please feel free to do that. I'll invite some of our steering committee members to share at different points as well. And anyone who wants to just jump in and make a comment, we've got plenty of time for this. So please feel welcome to do that. And then we'd love to hear, if you have thoughts on how can we keep this going for another 10 years? And finally, what are the important stories that we should tell as we're celebrating our 10-year and just communicating about the important work of this group in general? So we'll start with the first highlight is community. And as I was reflecting on what has really motivated and driven our work, it's really always been about the communities that we serve. I know as a steering committee member who joined right about 10 years ago when we were forming the Food Commission, I never really thought I'd be working on backyard chicken ordinances for a solid 10 years. But I love that that is something that has continually come up from our community. I think we knew from the very beginning that there was a lot of energy around that topic, around gardens, around just the excitement of all the great things happening in our community. So I feel very proud that we've been a group that recognizes everybody eats and really uses that North Star of how can we serve our community in the ways that they identify are important, as something that has always motivated our work. So the photo is a picture from an event we organized last fall, the evening at the Food Forest at MB Johnson Park in Moorhead. And I just love the kind of intergenerational people coming together to learn about wild food foraging. And it reminded me too that our community also includes our non-human relatives that are in this community as well, and thinking about how we treat the land, how we take care of our pollinators, how we ensure that we'll have soil for generations to come, et cetera. So being really motivated by the community is our first highlight. And then of course the map, thank you Adam, MetroCog, for putting together this really nice map of the jurisdictions that we serve. And another thing that has really stood out to me when I think about our community is the kind of unique nature of Cass and Clay and working collaboratively in so many ways across the state line. Is something that I think is really important to lift up about our approach as a network as well. So the second highlight, champions. There are so many fantastic people in our community doing wonderful work to support the food system. Some who are often recognized and others who maybe have never been recognized for their work. So I want to take a moment to kind of honor the many champions that we've had. I think that our co-chair, our chair, Janice, and Michelle previously did a great job of implementing a new kudos and recognition component of our agenda. And really, again, it's not all about who's on the steering committee or the organizations at the table. It's really about reaching into the community and lifting up the wonderful work and ideas that so many people have. So a couple of my favorites on this slide, the bottom left, you see Kim Lepetsky receiving an award at a great event we did a few years ago called The Future of Food. That was in honor of a ton of work that she put in on, you guessed it, backyard chickens, our first city, Fargo, that adopted one of those ordinances. I also really love the middle bottom photo. That was a food commission meeting where we had some Concordia students come and present. And I think anytime that you can lift up the future generation of champions, it's just so inspiring and fulfilling for those of us who've been around a while. to know that there's a lot of energy from our future generations. I also really enjoyed the top right, Calatin sharing about his journey from being involved with community gardens to the New Roots Farm Incubator to purchasing his own 12-acre farm. So I'll just pause and drink some water and invite, does anyone have like a favorite food commission presentation or favorite food system champion that you would like to lift up?
I remember being so energized when Farm in the Dell presented not that long ago. And since then, I've teamed up with some friends to buy a CSA share.
Amazing.
She was very,
Yes, and they do such a wonderful job as well.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share?
I just think of Food of the North and what they did with First Fridays for so many years to get the community involved, bring in a lot of students that would come and hear about food issues.
I think that's the power of the three-legged stool as well. I think sometimes as a policymaker, my influence is real limited. I really have to have people join me on the bandwagon of backyard chickens or pollinator gardens or boulevard gardens or any number of the topics and blueprints and resources that are now available online to the Cass Clay Food Commission, that it empowers me as a resident and an individual and provides me with tools, but also as a policymaker and outlets to learn about food issues and to have the presentations like First Friday or the larger type day celebrations that there have been multiples over the years that the Cass Clay Food Partners have sponsored, co-sponsored, and really lifted up. Even a pandemic couldn't keep this group down, which I think really speaks to the passion of the people who not only sit in the seats at commission meetings, at the steering committee meetings, and who are part of the Action Network, but it really is impactful doing that whole community. And I loved having the picture of individuals involved. Many people still don't know we exist. And so I think that's maybe a quest for the future. Like, you know, we may see the same sort of gardeners or farmers or a variety of things at our social network events or at our community events that we attend. But how can we increase that outlook? And I think you had that call, Noelle, right, to find tabling opportunities throughout the metropolitan area. And that was a beautiful offer, but I still think of many families not being able to make it to necessarily all of those events, and them as residents potentially being very impacted with the ability to compost food, gather water, have their own garden, or know where to shop for really great things that are created locally and support that not only ecosystem, but the economic development and drive of farmers like Calatin, who his story is absolutely outstanding. And so I don't know how we can do more, but I think we have lots to celebrate and can see it, how it didn't die. I don't know. I think Michelle had spoken to our uniqueness of being multiple states, multiple counties, multiple city representatives who come together multiple times a year and how much impact we've had. I think Adam even referenced that with updating the table of who's got chickens or who's considering chickens. And I'm hoping, you know, when we do our steering committee and commissioner round chair, that we can hear from some of those city representatives, you know, about the action that is happening in their communities around backyard chickens, which again, if that's the anniversary topic and that's the way we started, I think that's pretty great.
And I think you all just demonstrated in your comments that every single person in this room or on the Zoom call right now is a champion. Maybe you're newer to food systems work, but you are here for a reason, because you are a representative or a voice or a connection point back into your communities. So I hope a major theme will be gratitude and how much I appreciate everyone in this room. And I feel fairly confident saying this is a group that probably doesn't get thanked enough for the work that you do. So we'll be coming back to that a couple of times, but I do see every single person as a champion of this work. Connections, highlight number 3. So I think that the example, Karen, that you shared of heard a presentation at the Food Commission meeting, now you're buying a CSA share from that same organization. I think the beauty of a well-functioning network like this one is that sometimes the most important conversations happen in the parking lot after the meeting, or a phone call or follow-up conversation with one of the presenters. So we've always been very conscious of creating a very interconnected internal network. I'm sure everyone can make sense of that crazy diagram on the screen. But this was actually a NDSU researcher who was interested in our work and wanted to do something called a social network analysis. So some of you participated in that a few years back. But we wanted to look just kind of within the jurisdictions and within our 3 arms. How much are people connecting when it comes to learning and changing the food system? And then we also look at external connections too. When we have the opportunity to do a big event, to invite people to come into our food commission meetings, we're really intentional about how are we creating connections between us and the community, and then also opportunities for the community to become more connected when it comes to the food system. And Deb brought up First Fridays. What a beautiful example of how some of those community connections just could start in a shared space and then just blossom kind of exponentially from there. So we just covered kind of how and why we do our work. Now we're going to get into sort of what have we gotten done in the last 10 years. So partnerships, I think we could have had this whole presentation be about partnerships, but there are 2 in particular that we really wanted to lift up. And Janice, would you be okay with talking a little bit about Glean ND to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So Glean ND grew out of this group. It grew out of one of the blueprints back in 2017. The commission decided that they had this wonderful blueprint that they had learned about and adopted, and they wanted to see that implemented within the community. And so with grant funding, the commission was able to move forward and hire a gleaning coordinator to start a gleaning network in the community. And that's actually how I got brought into food partner work. I was hired to be that gleaning coordinator. And so there was a group bringing to the table Fargo Pass Public Health, NDSU Extension, Great Plains Food Bank, and a local farmer really trying to build this network of what that might look like. And so 2018 was our pilot year. We've had ebbs and flows over the year of going out into the community, gleaning this fresh produce that's not otherwise going to have a home and getting it into the hands of families who need it. And we've had such an array of what those gleans can look like. We picked a plum tree in South Moorhead, and we've been out in Castleton in a big cornfield, picking 5,000 pounds of corn. And so it looks a lot of different ways. And we've just been very grateful to have that food coming back into our network too, where we're not only making sure that the food isn't going to waste in our community, but then they're also making sure that people who might not have access to that fresh, healthy produce have that as well. And so I think there's still a lot of opportunity for growth in Glean ND, but it's still there. A lot of potential for it. A couple of years ago, it did also expand to Bismarck, where they also have access to the software system that runs Glean ND, so that they could do some gleaning within Bismarck as well. And it was really set up that it could be that, where it can have different networks kind of functioning under that as well.
Thank you. It's just so fun to think about. A lot of our work happens, you know, with kind of dry policy stuff and roundtable conversations, but to remember that we get out onto farms and are helping to make sure people in the community have access to that very healthy, locally grown food is so wonderful. And great to remember how we got Janice, who's had so many important roles in our group as well. And Food of the North and First Fridays, we have talked about that a little bit already, but just remembering that was kind of our original action network. And What a wonderful job that they did with organizing those events. And now that we're kind of reinventing the Action Network, I have a whole new appreciation for just how much effort and time went into organizing those monthly events. All right, Joan, so I feel like I want to dedicate this slide to you because this is all about the pandemic. So for better or for worse, there's another big anniversary taking place this week, which is the declaration of COVID as a global pandemic. So I remember, I'll just ask everyone to kind of reflect, where were you 5 years ago? I was at a food system conference in New Orleans, of all places, and watched the entire city slowly shut down. So I know that really motivated our group, not just my experience, but the way that we were all collectively experiencing those initial shocks during the pandemic. Stores running out of food, changing hours, trying to figure out the best times for vulnerable people to be able to do their shopping. So we really kicked it into high gear 5 years ago, doing Facebook Live updates where we were just sharing everything that we were seeing, you know, which grocery stores were offering special shopping periods for elderly residents or other vulnerable community members. And just a huge range of information, everything from healthy, simple recipes that you can make while stuck indoors with your kids, to ways to get involved with gardens, to changes in federal food assistance programs. So this is a snapshot of the work that was happening in partnership with Food of the North. And I think to the point about, you know, what can we be doing now to continue to respond to whatever the community needs, especially in a time of high food prices, avian influenza, et cetera. I found it really helpful to be reminded of things that we've done in the past to help our community be resilient in a challenging time. Products. We've really generated a lot of stuff over the years, starting with our food system plan, which actually initiated the creation of the Food Commission. So shout out to MetroCog and the work that they've done over the years to set the stage. Our policy blueprints, we've produced many of those. I actually have, at one point we put together a couple binders. These are going to be a little bit out of date. But I'll pass that around. That was a request by jurisdictions. And something I've wondered, you know, sometimes having a hard copy is nice, sometimes not. But maybe that's something that we could revisit, is producing one of those for each of our jurisdictions, if that would be helpful. But we've also created our series of YouTube videos. Those are excellent to revisit, very well produced. Short videos, our monthly newsletters. We've published 2 peer-reviewed journal articles. One was all about our work during COVID. So citation for that is on the previous slide. If you want to check that out, we can get these slides sent out as well. Our new strategic plan. We've had other strategic plans in the past, but so important to have that guiding document for our work. Our website and Facebook page. We have tons of information, particularly on our website. It's very hard to find. So that's something that we are planning to do some work around in the next year or so. Planning for food system resilience. There's a lot that we could talk about here. When we started off our work, only one jurisdiction mentioned the food system in their comprehensive plan. So we have really, particularly with MetroCog, and our partners like Erica from Clay County Planning and Zoning have worked really hard to get more language and more robust language into those planning documents. And Erica, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, comprehensive plans, for those of you that may not know, they serve as like the blueprint or the basis for development and growth within your communities and jurisdictions.
They really guide decision makers on zoning and development, transportation, and housing. So, and as I dug in, I didn't realize the amount and of food system related language that's in a lot of our jurisdictions' comp plans. So kudos to those jurisdictions. And I've kind of outlined a couple of them on there. I know Fargo Go, they were one of our first ones in 2012 that they actually had a guiding principle in their plan that it was to encourage healthy choices and improve the health of residents by enhancing awareness, increasing year-round recreational opportunities, increasing access to healthy food, and ensuring access to quality health care. So at the last 10 years, Onward Moorhead has, Moorhead had done a comp plan in 2018, I believe, or 2022. 2022.
Started in 2018.
Yes, they all take a long time. And they included a lot of good food system language in their plan as well, recognizing that they needed to gather ideas and input from the residents as to how to implement agricultural uses in their residential zoning districts to increase their access to fresh and healthy food. And they also have a goal to advance the health of individual residents and communities in adapting to a changing environment. They hope to achieve this by developing policies that support individual and community projects, such as native landscapes, rain gardens, and local food production and pollinators. The counties have also done comprehensive plan updates in Cass County in 2018 and Clay County in 2022. While they're a little bit more broad, they still outline the issues of food access for our rural residences and in small communities. And they really concentrate on preserving that ag land from overdevelopment, while supporting the local food production and incorporating small-scale agriculture on residential lots. So commissioners, I encourage you in the next 10 years or so, maybe earlier than that, I hope, but I encourage you to seek out if there's food system language within your jurisdiction and to really utilize that as you hear comments from citizens and as you make land use decisions and update policies in your jurisdictions. And if you do find that your community doesn't have anything in their comprehensive plan, maybe speak up at the next time that you come forward to have your plan updated. As remember that food system language should really be incorporated as everybody eats.
Thank you so much, Erica. And this probably doesn't include everything. This is what I could fit on the slide. But just kind of giving a snapshot. I think it maybe doesn't get shared enough that, you know, we're kind of a big deal nationally as far as how our Food Policy Council is structured and the work that we've done. So we've been involved in 2 national communities of practice, one of which resulted in this food system planning guide for local governments, which is available from Johns Hopkins. And is being used all around the country by planning departments, by cities lucky enough to have designated food system staff to write resilience plans. So very exciting that actually Moorhead was featured heavily in that document. And then Adam, did you want to share a little bit about the Minnesota Food Charter, the top right corner food access planning guide?
Sure, I can be happy to do that. So, I'll just note that both Noel and Erica noted prior to 2015, there was only one area comprehensive plan systems. In that time, there is at least 8 nowadays that address issues ranging from urban beekeeping, community gardens, food access, the gamut. So it's been really wonderful to see that. But one of the projects we had the opportunity to participate in was back in 2016. Mitchell Hamlin Public Health Law Center was developing a food access planning guide for communities across Minnesota. So they reached out to planners, people in public health, community advocates, elected officials, students, food producers. It was a steering committee of about 45 people and met in St. Paul over the course of a couple of months. Some of us knew a little bit more about food systems than others, but we all knew that it was something that was important that we were hearing about in our communities. And we were trying to think about what are ways that we can integrate this into different planning processes. So what came about was this food access planning guide that provided recommendations for communities who want to adopt food systems policies in their comprehensive plans. And I will say that we've probably used this with maybe 3 comprehensive plans that we worked on. So it was a great opportunity and it was a perfect timing for us since when we worked on this project back in 2016. Cass County, they updated their comp plan back in 2018. City of Castleton updated theirs in 2019. Forest, we'd updated theirs in 2021. All of these had information that we did look at based on this food access plan. It's a great opportunity to participate in that.
Thanks, Adam, and thank you so much. Adam is really connected with planners around the region and in both states, and I know has presented a lot about our work to these groups. So we appreciate everyone again who's a champion of our work. Policy, we talk about this so much in our work, and I just wanted to hit on again the amount of, we're not a lobbying or advocacy group. We set out to find the best information and examples of ordinances from around the country and share those out. I think the act of informing policymakers about the food system has been a strong vein throughout our work, and knowing that, everyone eats, but hardly anyone knows all about how the food system works. So really taking on kind of bringing those two closer together so that we can have the people leading our communities be as informed as possible about the issues. I also wanted to point out, these are fantastic little handouts. These are in your tote bag. If you didn't get a tote bag, please take one before you leave. If you already took one, please take a second one to give to someone. But these are nice little handouts that Michelle Draxton put together. And I think these really speak to, our work doesn't stop when an ordinance is adopted, but we're constantly, taking these when we go table in the community, talking with people about what the policies are, helping jurisdictions update their policies. Even thinking about our presentation today on avian flu, I look at this chicken handout thinking, we could probably get a little more info out on that. So that kind of implementation, seeing things all the way through, being able to have a conversation, hey, if something isn't going well with backyard chickens, what can we do to correct that? Having a presence in the community. It was fun to revisit some of the forum stories that have been written about our work, to think about Coffee with the Food Commission, where we tried to just kind of be more out there and available in the community. And then, of course, I think ramping up our tabling efforts is a really great way to reach people. People from the community love stopping by our booth and playing with the chicken stuffies or getting a free lettuce planting kit. So we're really excited to continue having a strong presence in the community. All right, this is highlight number 10, and it's the most important. The people are really what make this group work. And we want to honor everyone who's been a Cass Clay Food Commissioner. You can see a complete list on the slide. And just know that, this work really is all about both individuals, increasing our capacity and connections and ability to improve our local food system. And we are so incredibly grateful for all of you for being a part of this work. And thank you to all of our commissioners from the past as well. Just a couple more. We wanted to take a moment to honor one of our original founders of this group, Gina Nolte, who passed away way too early at age 61 from pancreatic cancer. I have often thought about Gina. Gina is the person who asked me to be a part of the steering committee, and someone who I just admire so greatly for the way that she did her work, for the sense of humor that she always brought, to her ability to make people just immediately comfortable and included. So we wanted to just take a moment to honor Gina. And I actually had the opportunity to sit down and interview her 2 years before the Food Commission was formed. And this is what she said about what the goals were of what they were trying to create. Gina said, we were broad in our goals. We set our vision and mission, and our goal was, first of all, to engage the broader group in planning to identify what our goals would be. Sounds familiar. And then to engage the broader community in this. For us, it was getting healthier foods, local foods. We were all concerned about low income, food deserts, those kinds of areas. So that was our preliminary goal, making sure that we have access for healthier food and use of local foods. I think a lot of wisdom, and again, that North Star of how do we help our community be healthy? I think we've really stayed true to that.
And she was always a voice for somebody who didn't have a voice. Always in a meeting, she would speak up for somebody that she knew who might not have had a voice. So she was my boss, wonderful lady.
Want to say anything? Well, this is the little journey that we just went on. 3 C's that describe kind of how and why we do our work, and then 7 P's that describe what we've accomplished in 10 years. And with that, I think we could maybe take a couple minutes for this discussion piece. And again, if you just want to write something down on the note card, if you don't want to say that out loud, we'd love to collect those as well if you'd like to share anything.
You kind of touched on one with 701 eateries. What was the most exciting or surprising partner, do you think? Unexpected.
I was surprised that out of a First Friday, the presenters were from school foods producers or servers. And some of us were in the audience in absolute shock about how much food from our local school systems are wasted and how many people go hungry in our community. And out of that came the school lunch repacking. And so I don't know that that was surprising, but I don't know that our community knew how much was wasted and how with some support and some structure about food safety and support that the staff could repackage it as long as there was a freezer for it to go in. And so we've seen that expand to many communities beyond just the 3 schools that were in the pilot that was started just as a springboard based on a First Friday. And so that's one of my favorite things, and to me was really surprising. Most of the time we just talk about it or talk about it during the session and then have a little after conversation in the parking lot. But in that case, it went from parking lot to boardroom to action. And it took a lot of effort, but it was because of that was possible. My 2 cents, of course.
I think about, I feel like the most controversial topic we've taken on was looking at pesticide use on public lands. That kind of stirred up a lot, both within our group and externally. And there was a situation that happened I won't get into, but the person kind of responsible for doing the application of pesticide was really open to doing things differently. And I, came and presented to the Food Commission. And as a result, there was one particular pesticide that they stopped using in residential areas or areas that might later become gardens. Because we were able to approach the conversation in a way that was based on learning and not an us versus them, but how can we look at this issue and talk about it openly and come up with solutions that aren't always a big P ordinance change, but have an impact on the way that things get done in our community.
I'd like to mention somebody else who was on the slide because she was one of our at-large members, Dana Reith. But Dana had also worked in Minnesota with a local area there, and then went into West Fargo Public Schools as the food service director. So she was one of those that was one of those early starters of REPAC program.
And I think to your example, Noel, the city of Moorhead reformulated how it looks at pesticide use in our community and was able to change our focus from nuisance to public health. And it was because of a conversation that started and was very respectful and information-based, education-based, that it didn't happen the next day, but it took some time and some education as well as some research within our own community. And so that was made possible by that conversation starter.
This is Amy Zundel. One of the things that sticks out to me as a new commissioner that joined was we don't really there's no orientation process for when you are new. So I think to have a successful commission, it's important to have people that are engaged. And I think it's a lot easier to be engaged maybe when there's some type of onboarding, to say these are opportunities to get engaged, or this is how your role kind of interacts with the commission, or maybe just some more foundational, like this is the commission, this is what we do, this is your role on the commission. And then my other thought would be that, I feel like we talk a lot about the schools, and maybe is there an opportunity to have someone on the commission from the various school districts? And maybe that would help lead to more productive conversations on that end.
Thank you, Amy. Those are such fantastic points. And, we've been discussing, yes, we should absolutely do an orientation. And I think we could commit to reaching out to you soon. We've talked about that within the steering committee, and I agree, it's really important. And then the issue of whether, school districts are a part of our jurisdiction. They're included in that map that I showed. So we have been discussing too, if it makes sense to have a commission seat that's open for someone from the schools, or if we create another type of role, knowing that school food service folks are incredibly busy people. But I agree that I think that's really important and something we'll continue to talk about amongst the steering committee. Thank you so much.
To kind of follow that up, I've got a funny anecdote. I started in COVID, and it was all Zoom meetings. And my very first in-person meeting, I went down and sat by Adam and got the agenda. And he said, "No, you're up there." So, just even simple things like that, what to do and where to go, I think would be good. So I echo Amy's sentiment there. And then one thing I did want to call out really quick too, and I don't know if anybody's seen it in the chat, but Tim had said he is guest hosting on WDAY AM and FM, and he could see if he can get Dr. Schuft on to talk about avian flu. So kudos to that. That's kind of neat. I thought I'd call that out.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you as well, Commissioner Flacco, for that opportunity. That's wonderful. And I remember our first in-person meeting after COVID being very awkward as well. What else? I know we're getting into close to the end of our time together.
I would just say kudos and great work to everybody who puts their time in, that we've had such a sustainable food partners group for so long without a designated staff person, at least in recent years. That takes a lot of time and effort in other people's roles.
Absolutely. And thank you to our at-large commissioners and Anna, the extra work that you've been taking on as well. It really takes all of us kind of rowing together to make this work. So for those lucky enough to be here in person, MetroCog provided some lovely muffins and fruit and treats. So we're not getting kicked out of the room, so we can spend a little time just in informal conversation if folks have time to stick around. And again, don't forget to take an extra tote bag with you.
Well, also, if you have been reflective about any of those questions, those discussion questions, if you have responses, Noelle, you will be collecting at the end of the meeting.
Great.
Awesome.
Oh, I got something. My name is Candace Kraft. I was just wondering, so it's been like 10 years you guys have been discussing backyard chicken ordinance. Is there like a concrete timeline when that will be like addressed, like a finalization of a rule so that we can, as a community, move on to other, more pressing issues that are more pertinent to the needs of most of the other people in the Fargo-Moorhead area?
Absolutely, and I shouldn't have made it seem like that's the only thing we've been working on.
I'm glad that you did bring it up because we spent an hour here, it's like an hour every time that there's a meeting, and it's meeting every other month, so it's not like, it's a lot, an excessive amount of time about an issue that affects a very small subset, relatively speaking, of the people that live in this community. We have more pressing issues. We have homeless people that are dying on the street, that are hungry, that need food. I see Dorothy Day, Emergency Food Pantry. These people are pouring out of there. And those pantries don't have enough food to feed them. And the religious nonprofits, the other nonprofits, they should not be expected to foot the bill, so to speak, for food security in this city. So we need to do something as a community because I'm tired of watching my friends die and be sick because they don't have enough food.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think you will find a ton of agreement in this room.
And another thing that I'm quite perturbed about is the moving of this meeting, because that to me and to a lot of other people goes to show that community input is just lip service, quite frankly, because I traversed throughout the parking lot. There was no sign over at the door saying where this meeting was taking place.
At the City of Fargo building?
Correct.
Okay.
At City Hall. There was no meeting. There was no note indicating where this meeting was. So in my eyes, it really goes to show that community input is not welcome, because if it was, there would have been a sign at that door saying where this meeting was taking place. So it's all fine and dandy if you want to sit here and talk about chickens, but I understand the egg shortage is a real problem. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more pressing problems. A lot of these problems that you're talking about here today affect only property owners. There's a lot of people that live in this community that are not property owners. And I want to see some real action. I don't want to talk about chickens for an hour every other month.
Well, you're in luck, Candace. It was an agenda item at our last meeting and this meeting.
And the meeting before.
And I don't anticipate that we will spend this much time on backyard chickens again. Also, I'd like to highlight what was highlighted about Glean ND and the work that's done.
And I appreciate that information, because I absolutely do want to look into that a little bit more.
And I think that's just one of the things that we can include, more sharing out of information, because there may be people who in their businesses or in their homes or even in the city gardens, like I don't know for what the botanical gardens up north, they've got a fruit forest. Moorhead has a couple.
That it is not a true fruit forest.
So it's more of an educational tool.
Correct.
But
that is not a fruit forest. That is an educational forest. That is not the same thing as picking what you need.
Correct. And
You
so.
get like 3 berries per bush, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that.
Well, I'm not sure what or how they process that. And so that is something that is educational, an opportunity for others to learn, but also what they can do. I thought Janice's highlight of gleaning from a plum tree in someone's yard, again, that's outstanding. But there are other public spaces that may have foods available that go to waste or that
That's
are not
actually-
advertised.
You know,
And so that's an opportunity.
that's a
And so-
very interesting point, because I tried to go harvest some food at Lindenwood Park. It's a monoculture. There's nothing to eat there. Maybe some catnip tea if somebody doesn't spray it with pesticides, but all these parks are monocultured. With no real, I mean, there's like little demo gardens where all the tourists can come see, like right there that we're planting. But I mean, it's a joke.
Well, I
The
think.
food security in this city is a joke.
May I
Period.
interrupt right now? We're supposed to have a roundtable where we make community announcements.
Okay.
And I am also affiliated with the Growing Together Community Gardens. There are 9 gardens in Fargo that people can volunteer to go and work in. And if you work 20 hours, you get a share each week if you show up and work again. So that is a way.
Yeah,
that
that's
people
easy to
can
do if you have a place to live. But if you're homeless living on the street, eating burritos from Petro, that's really hard to do.
But
And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love community gardening. That is not, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there is some deeper systemic issues that are not being addressed.
I think.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate what you're saying, Candace, and I fully agree with you. I find it frustrating that so much of our work sometimes feels to the benefit of property owners. I don't think that this meeting showcased all the other things that we've worked on around hunger. We have Janice from the Great Plains Food Bank who, spends her entire life working on issues around hunger. So in no way do I want to dismiss what you're saying though, and the criticism.
Well, I can
Because I
tell you
think
what, there's a lot of people out there that feel exactly like I do.
No doubt, no doubt. And so I would love to have a conversation with you or with others. I would love to commit to bringing some of these issues forward to our May Food Commission meeting. And I don't want anyone to feel dismissive of what you're saying, because I think it's a completely solid point. And, we need folks like you holding us accountable and helping us understand, what are the top issues? How do we work on them? How do we frame?
I actually have a master of science degree in environmental science and policy with a specialty, an area of emphasis, in food security. And also my bachelor's degree is in fish and wildlife biology. So I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about.
Let's talk. I know that we're at the end of our time together, but I would love to get connected with you and have a conversation. And I, again, just want to say thank you for having the courage and for finding us, and apologize for.
I really hope that was an honest mistake and that wasn't on purpose.
It absolutely.
Because you know what, I gotta say, it felt like it was on purpose. Because City of Fargo's been doing some really strange things to me lately.
This is our first time having our meeting in this new space. And we make sure we get a sign if it happens again. But thank you.
Yeah, it just seems a little coincidental. Just to say.
I did inadvertently go there, and the person who's working at the informational desk did redirect me over here.
Yeah, he did. He told me like the Butler building, blah, blah, blah. Like if they removed the Butler part off the, I forgot. It doesn't say the Butler building anymore. So yeah, I could dig deep from 20 years ago into my brain and try to find it, but yeah. And then I asked several people. In fact, I think one of them sitting right here, where is the meeting? Where is the Food Commission meeting? And nobody wanted to tell me. So you know what? I will be at the May meeting, but I gotta go. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming here. Please take some snacks on your way out, and we appreciate you being with us here today.
Candace, just as an FYI, sorry, there was no other way to butt in, but the city of West Fargo has 10 fruit orchards where you can also show up and get fruit that way. They're in different locations all around the city of West Fargo, and we're adding another one here this summer as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think that highlights not only issues, but ways to get information out to people who have need. And so, you know, I think it should be more than just May that we explore. I feel like there's just so many things to discuss. And so I appreciate feedback and input, as well as I know the steering committee works really hard to follow up on any issues that we bring forward or highlight and add to the front of our list. And so those meetings are also open and encourage insights to commissioners like myself or steering committee members. And so,
well, and I'm not trying to be like full of rage, angry. Like I'm angry watching my friends be hungry and have nowhere to live. That's what I'm angry about. So like my anger is justified and I'm not trying to take it out on anyone, but it just seems like there's a lot of strange things that the city of Fargo does to me particularly that I am starting to document now. So I'm just getting a little frustrated with the bizarre governmental way, the way that Fargo particularly manages their city is very borderline illegal. We'll just put it that way. Have a good day. Thank you.
thank you, Candace. We're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is public comments, just because we're here, and then we'll go back to 7 if that's all right for everybody. I feel like Candace embraced that community public comment section. And so I'd just like to jump there. Sorry, Adam, thanks for moving the slides ahead. Have we received any public comments?
You haven't, unless Janice, do you have?
We couldn't track it down. We have one that we think is going to a unregulated inbox potentially. So we will follow up and have that at our May meeting if it doesn't need to be addressed before that.
You know, I happened to be present when the individual mentioned it. And so it was Jill Petrie from the University of Minnesota Extension who saw that we had chickens on our agenda and wanted to get some community feedback on whether having an open community session that was education around backyard chickens, if there was any interest in that. She did, when I asked her if that would still be possible this spring, she did say yes. And so I think that's a wonderful opportunity to engage. So if there are those who are interested in having that sort of education, I'm going to volunteer myself to follow up with Jill at the Extension office. And so if you are interested, or if your community is interested in having that sort of education, I'm not thinking that we'll go to Horst, to Dilworth, to Moorhead. I think it'll be one centralized location, but that we can publicly announce and make people aware, since it has a number of topics, the chicken influenza, or excuse me, H5 influenza, as well as the current food prices, I think, are just a couple of things at the forefront. Moving from public comment, we'll go back to kudos and community recognition. I don't want to downplay or miss our kudos and community recognition. And so I will have Adam take this item away.
Thank you, Chair. We wanted to recognize one of our own today. She's been an invaluable person ever since even before we were called the Cass Clay Food Partners back in 2010, when it was the Cass Clay Food Systems Initiative. Devin Haugen, she's been here from the very beginning. Past 16 years, she's provided dietitian consulting services to the community. She's been an invaluable source of knowledge and expertise on issues related to school nutrition and wellness policies. Skipping ahead here, she's worked at Cass Clay Alive. With that, assessing and promoting stronger school wellness policies and providing continued education to food service directors in the area. She's also, as she mentioned earlier, active member of Growing Together Community Gardens, group comprised of over 300 volunteers that work at 9 different gardening sites, all through the area. We understand that your time with us is coming to a close here soon, but we just want to take this time to thank you for all the years of dedication that you've provided to us.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's been a joy. It's been a pleasure. You said that I consulted, but I was learning while the group was learning. I think back of Kim and her drawing me in and providing some funding to pay for me to do research. And the only 3 areas that I knew of with food systems that were doing a lot of work were Oregon and Iowa and the Twin Cities. But it helped the group get going, and it has grown me. So thank you all for growing me so much.
Well, thank you, Deb. You're not gonna let her go, Rory?
Yeah, officially. Thank you, Deb.
It will be at the steering committee meeting, so.
2008, so thanks, Deb, for being kind of a mom at the same time. Your knowledge and just being very grandmotherly and motherly, and in your empathy for other people. That's been very warming when you're part of a group.
Well, and it's been a joy working with Rory all these years, and then to have him come on in this role was just wonderful and amazing. So thank you all.
Marvelous. We will move on to the 9th agenda item, which is a commission and steering meeting roundtable. I know we are over time, but there may be comments from some of our local policy makers about things that are going on in their community. We'd love to hear about goings on, happenings, events, or updates on your policies that you're looking at. No one? I will mention, we've already talked about Jill Petrie, but the University of Minnesota Clay County Master Gardeners are having a plant fundraiser sale again this year. And so one thing I wanted to highlight in the celebration thing, we had Boulevard Gardens and a news clipping from Boulevard Gardens, how they were new. The Master Gardeners and Jill have put together a Boulevard Garden pack. And so it all meets the city of Moorhead's Boulevard ordinance and requirements. And so everything will be below, is it 24 inches? 36
or 18, depending.
Yep. And so they have essentially a short native bunch, but they also have bunches that you can buy individual packs. You can buy flats of all things. And then their plan this year is also to have vegetables and herb plants available, not for pre-order, but upon pickup. And so gardeners who are interested in making an expanse to their business or to their personal property, or perhaps their neighbor, they've noticed they have a patch that's unused, could utilize the sale that the Clay County Master Gardeners are putting out. So that can be found on Facebook. They're currently taking orders today through May 8th. Any other updates?
I guess I can do one for Horace. We are doing all the things, and things are really kicking off with spring coming up. We are in the process of developing some community gardens. With this explosive growth we have, we're now catching up with some of the, we have the people, now we need the systems and infrastructure and things that they want. So doing a little bit of work on some land for community gardens. We are in the process, the city council gave myself and Jace Hellman permission to pursue the backyard chicken ordinance. So we're really excited about that. thanks in large part to the work that this committee does, kind of spurring those conversations for us down there. We're getting food drives going. We recently unveiled a recycling center. Fishing ponds were debuted last summer. We're working on, now that we're developing full on, we're working on green spaces and trails. So just lots of exciting food related and gardening and outdoor and eco-friendly related things going on in Horace. So
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Roy, did I see you gesture that you have an update or a comment? No?
Did not see that.
Okay. All right, our next committee meetings, this is agenda item 10. We will be back at our home for the commission meeting on May 14th and the Fargo City Hall. But this is the space where steering committee meetings are held. And so on March 24th, if anybody is interested, it is an open meeting. We are in the MetroCog at 1 p.m. on Mondays, I believe that is correct. The next Action Network letter is due out April 4th. That's the first Friday of every month. If you would like to sign up to participate and get that Action newsletter, you can find the details online and on Facebook. And with that, I think we are ready to adjourn at 12:14. Thank you, everybody, for your additional time today. I sincerely appreciate it. All in favor of adjourning? Yay, perfect. Sounds good.